that a lot of your work and a lot of generally what you say and what you do uses words frequently that are usually very challenging and can put people into potentially very uncomfortable situations like sexuality, feminist, queer, and fact. How do you address these different yet interconnected themes so successfully? And what do you think can be done to reach out more effectively to a wider audience while addressing issues that are usually deemed controversial?
I mean, these are words, and for me, it's like I don't think unless I'm at a government meeting and I think it's important to use these words, so I would possibly then think of the words as words. But these are things that are actually describing me, and for me, it's important that all of us start using these words publicly. I mean, instead of couching it on, you're healthy, so it's fat. I mean, it's, there's no imagination. I can cover myself however much I want, but you have to be visually challenged to not notice I'm fat. So I think that there is a way in which, for me, it's been integral to asking uncomfortable questions, like, what I was saying in the beginning of just being able to challenge, and it's not so difficult. I think that if you have to be confident that what you're asking is important enough, and if you do it and you do it well, it works. What works for me is the fact that I am a people person, and the fact is that I do use a lot of humor. So then you sort of blunt the blow, and I'm actually talking about myself. So really, you can't turn around and say you can't do this. So that's how it works for me.
Your stand-up comedy act, Fat, Feminist and Free, has been hugely successful and talked about. While we know that the fat acceptance movement or fat positivism in general as a movement has had a huge surge in the US and other countries from the 60s, first, second wave of feminism, and till the present, India has yet to see a momentum of that kind. Fat remains a word that is supposedly controversial, challenging, can make people uncomfortable. How do you then try to address this discomfort through your comedy? And was there ever a time when you too have been extremely fazed by reactions?
Well, Fat, Feminist and Free actually came from stories that have happened to me, and which most of those stories seem completely impossible to have ever happened to any human being. Random people telling me how I can lose weight, people telling me asking me if I've been to a mall because they exercise machines, being stopped at security because I don't, and for the security guards telling me to go through the male whatever line, all of that. Some of it are things that happen to people. So I used to recount these stories as funny stories to friends. And then I thought, oh, what the hell, let's just make up Fat, Feminist and Free, and that's really how it happened, that for Kriya's 7th anniversary, I did the show, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a show. Clearly for me, there was no other way. You had to put fat, you had to put feminist. The difference is, since free was not the word I'd actually thought of, my first word was fuckless. It was fat, feminist, and fuckless. And I thought fuckless would lead to many questions. Part of the questions would be, oh my god, really, you mean she's fuckless, etc. I mean, one of that strand. But the other was also that, I could be caught for obscenity using the F word. So that's why it became free, and I was like, I don't particularly care for the word free. It's been amazing doing the show. I haven't done it in some time now, but do I have negative reactions? No, I don't. Because actually, every single person goes through stigma and discrimination, whether they're thin, whether they're large, whether they're small, long hair, short hair, all of it works. So everybody sort of listens. I think what it does to the audience is that some of them get very uncomfortable, because it suddenly they recall their own stories of having said these things to people. There are times when I find I might have said something, and I know that then actually there's been one occasion where the story has come back in my head as I performed, and I realized that I ended up sounding defensive and angry. And that's probably been the only one time in one of the arguments one of the question answers. But otherwise, it's been an amazing, amazing way to do theatre. Do stand up and do comedy also, because I think that comedy gets you laughing, it gets you squirming, And because the comedy is not directed at the person in the audience, it's actually my stories which I'm telling you, or my take of existing stories which are anyway funny by themselves. So I actually have stopped calling it a comedy show because I feel that I get into the bracket of Peter Russell and Veer Das, and who actually live off the fact that they make fun of others. And I'm not making fun of others, I'm making fun of myself. And yes, I'm making fun of others, but in their reaction to me.
As you know, you've been talking about your stand-up comedy act. A lot of your work, apart from that, has also been about challenging the very archaic ideas that we tend to have about body, especially bodies that do not fall within a very conventional idea of a heterosexual, able-bodied framework. What do you think about body politics, and how do you, through your work, try to address the idea of body politics?
I think the very fact that I exist and I stand in front of a workshop with an unconventional body, dressed unconventionally for people apparently my size, is in itself, I feel, a challenge. I think that the fact that as a body I am not the right body size. As a woman, I don't look womanly enough. As a woman, I have a lot of facial hair. So I anyway challenge any form of idea that you have of who this woman should be when I stand up in front. For me, I've always done trainings on gender and sexuality and sexual rights and identities for probably since the mid-90s. I can't imagine doing it any other way. As I said, that a lot of it is standing up and talking about stuff which you're seeing around you and my own stories, because as a trainer I feel that if you cannot bring yourself into the conversation while discussing gender and sexuality, you have no right to ask participants to tell you their lives, because they're basically sharing all kinds of things. So body image for me is something that has taken me a really long time to come to peace with it. I think I've gone through all the peer pressure, I've gone through the thing of saying, oh my god, I'm not good enough, whatever. Even when talking about heterosexuality, I don't think I never identified as anything but heterosexual for a large part of my life. So for me, it's challenging heterosexuality in terms of what it defines for how women should live their lives. No premarital sex, no being forward, all of that. So I was challenging it then. And then I think when I came, my identity as queer, which earlier I used the word lesbian because I'd like to make people uncomfortable. And so therefore I would throw that into the melting pot. And depending on how sticky the audience is, then definitely lesbian. Otherwise it would be just queer, because I feel that's more what that's how I would talk. But in those circles, then I would talk about my heterosexual background. Because I think it's important to stir that pot. It's not that everyone grows up with one identity and they all live in that identity. So for me, I am challenged all the time on 100 things. I don't think I have answers for anything. My way of dealing with that is to throw the questions right back at people and say, guys, this is something that you're going to have to deal with. And body image particularly, because I work with a lot of young people, and I think it's shameful that any of them have to go through what a number of us went through when we were in our 20s or our teens, that we repeat the cycle of repetition. It's just like unbelievable how every generation goes through it. It's unfair.